The 17th century philosopher Spinoza, who I believe was Portuguese but spent most of his time in Holland, came up with this, well, two things I want to say about Spinoza really. The first thing is the idea of, I think he called it neutral monism, but I might be mixing that up with somebody else. But he had this idea, it was intended to resolve the difficulties inherent in Cartesian dualism. Cartesian dualism being the intuitive sense that we coexist as two types of being. We are an immaterial mind or an immaterial soul, somehow inhabiting a material body, an extended body with an unextended mind, somehow attached to it. That's Cartesian dualism, broadly speaking. Spinoza's neutral monism tries to resolve that by claiming that both these experiences, the material experience of the body and the immaterial experience of the mind, are themselves only partial experiences. They're aspects of a deeper truth, that there is a single unified substance, if I can use that term, which shows its different aspects in different ways. We can experience either as a material, in which case we think of it as body and matter, or it can display itself as mind or soul, immaterial, unextended. There's no evidence, of course, that this idea has any basis in physical fact, even though it does, I think, find its corollaries in some other religious practices. I think Hinduism has something like that at its heart. I think there is this idea, maybe completely wrong in this one, but I think Hinduism has its, as part of its mythology, the idea that Shiva and Shakti, the sort of male and female deities, sort of represent kind of matter and energy, or matter and soul, and both of those are kind of emanations of Brahma, which is a single entity, let's say, which lies behind both of those emanations. But Spinoza has this idea that, as I say, underpinning Cartesian substance dualism, there is this single substance, single entity. Come on, you two. Hi there. Hi, Linda. So, as I said, there's no evidence at all for this Spinozistic neutral monism, but it has a sort of appeal, and it provides a sort of organisational logic, even though we can't directly access it, or even indirectly access it. The other thing I think interesting about Spinoza, and which sort of follows from that understanding, is that he's widely credited as being a kind of pantheist or a panpsychist. And I think that sort of follows from this idea of monism that he has. If there is a single substance of which matter and mind are its emanations, then that single substance, it feels logical to say, must contain both matter and mind, or must be some sort of fusion, some sort of holistic mind-matter entirety, I guess. And given that certainly when Spinoza was writing, it wasn't really possible to talk about mind or indeed matter without talking about God. There's a theology built into those notions. So if there is a single matter, or a single substance which underlines mind and matter, it contains mind, it also has some sort of theological component, a theistic component. And it's very tempting in that, I think, to regard Spinoza, therefore, as a pantheist. And he certainly did write a lot about God, and certainly had a lot of theological references in his work. I think he was referred to by the poet Novalis as something like God intoxicated, I think was the phrase, God intoxicated man, which is an interesting idea, beautiful idea really. But in Spinoza's own writings, he doesn't come across as a pantheist in quite that way. In fact, he doesn't come across as a theist in that way. I think there's an argument to be made he's panpsychist, but not pantheist, because one of the distinctions he makes himself in some of his writings is to do with how one would approach a world in which God is embedded into the fabric of it. What would an appropriate approach to a pantheistic world be? And how would that be distinguished from an approach to the world which does not have, God threaded through it? And what Spinoza says is that the approach to a pantheistic world would have to contain this idea of what he calls worshipful awe. It's a way of sort of standing gobsmacked and dumbfounded in front of the world and recognizing the authority and the presence of a deity within it. And that deity has a sort of father figure reverence attached to it. So approached it with worshipful awe. But Spinoza said that's not his way of looking at the world, and he finds that, I think he says it's a stupid way of looking at the world, almost like a stereotypical country yokel looking at the cathedral or something like that. It has that sort of ring to it. He says that's a stupid way of looking at the world. We shouldn't approach the world with worshipful awe. We should look at the world as it is, in its beauty and its attractiveness and its complexity, and embrace it in every way we can, experientially, scientifically, to completely engage with that process and not feel that we have to sort of stand back and worship it.